usual for Peter not to be joining?
It is. Thank you.
Hey, Councillor Glancy, I can confirm that we are now live streaming.
Okay, thank you very much. For 1 more minute. Councillor Chandler's disappeared again. Houston.
Can you hear me, Margaret?
I can do, yes, I can.
At the briefing, I did have problems. I kept losing part of it.
Right.
So I'll just have to keep aware of what's happening this evening and see if hopefully it keeps working okay.
I think things are playing up this evening. I have no idea why. It's very strange. We've got some gremlins around at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Right, it's now 6 o'clock by my clock. So I think we'll start proceedings, okay? So welcome everybody to the remote planning meeting. First of all, just a little bit of general housekeeping as we normally do. I am Councillor Margaret Glancy, Chair of Planning. And prior to this evening's meeting, we've been testing the technology and confirmed that the speakers are in attendance and can be heard. I also confirm that I can see and or hear my fellow participating councillors, although we do have one that is missing at the moment. And those members are Councillor Bindloss, Councillor Brown, Councillor Chandler had signed in and now seems to have disappeared from the screen. Councillor Faulkner isn't in attendance as yet. Councillor Glancy, myself, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Higgins, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Posnett, Councillor Steadman and Councillor Wood. So thank you for that. And we have a team of officers present this evening. We have our planning solicitor, Mr. Bob Power. We have our Assistant Director for Strategic Planning and Delivery, Mr. Jim Worley. Our Planning Development Manager, Louise Parker. And our Conservation Officer, Mr. Toby Ebbs, who's a planning officer as well. Our Democratic Services Manager, Natasha Taylor. And our Democratic Services Officer, Sarah Evans. I think I've got everybody there from what I can see on my screen. Now, as is usual with our remote meetings, members speaking, I'd be grateful if you could use the raise hand facility on your screen. And a member of the Democratic Services, probably Natasha, will make a note and inform me accordingly. Members voting. Please note a remote member participating in a vote will cast his or her vote as if participating in a recorded vote. I will ask members alphabetically for their vote, either for, against or abstain. All microphones will be unmuted while the vote is being recorded. Following the vote, all microphones will be returned to mute. Now we have experienced a few little glitches this evening so far. But if we do have disruption to remote conferencing, I refer you to the remote meeting procedure rules. In the event of link failures, for all attendees, I will call a short adjournment of up to 5 minutes. If the link cannot be re-established, the meeting shall be adjourned to a later date. In the event of a link failure for individual members, the remote member will be deemed to have left the meeting at the point of failure. And if the link cannot be re-established before the end of the meeting, then the presumption will be that the meeting should continue to deal with the items providing the meeting remains correct. If there is disruption to the members' connectivity, Mr. Power will determine whether a member has heard enough of the debate to be able to lawfully vote, depending on the particular circumstances and how much the member has missed. Members, please note this meeting is being recorded and remember it is being live streamed. Please put your phone onto silent, which is what I'm going to do right now because I've just heard mine go off. Sorry about that. Item 1 on our agenda, apologies for absence. I have no official apologies, but I do understand that Councillor Chambers having difficulty signing in the Zoom. So if you could advise when Councillor Chandler is actually live and join the meeting, Natasha, I'd be very grateful.
I will do.
Thank you. Item 2, to confirm the minutes of the 9th of December. Seems such a long time ago. Do any members have anything they wish to mention about the minutes? Do they have any concerns or any queries? If you'd like to raise your hand now. I can't see any hands raised. So rather than go through my list of councillors for agreement, I will assume every member agrees the minutes unless you raise your hand to indicate otherwise. So can we have a proposer and seconder for the minutes, please? I can't see any hands raised, sorry.
Got Councillor
There we go.
Councillor Steadman.
Right, Councillor Posnett. You're on mute, Councillor Posnett.
Yes, I'll propose the minutes.
I was proposing the minutes, thank you.
No. Councillor
I'll just second them.
Right, Councillor Posnett proposed and Councillor Steadman has seconded. So thank you very much, Councillor Faulkner. Anyway, thank you. Right, so we don't have any problems with the minutes, so I assume that they are agreed. Oh, Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised. You're on mute, Councillor Holmes.
Right.
Hello.
I don't know, I'm trying to put my hand down.
Oh, right, okay.
Lower hand, I've done it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is declarations of interest. Please note the contents of the advice on members' interests, and if you think you have a personal, either non-pecuniary or pecuniary interest or bias, please state that now. So we have Councillor Posnett.
I'd like to declare a personal interest as being a member of Leicestershire County Council, if that is discussed this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steadman.
Yes, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in Beaver Cricket Club, Horston Lane, Nipton. I'm on a shoot. I'm on a syndicate shoot at Beaver Castle, and that could be construed as being biased. And I think because this application is very contentious, it's probably best that I step down on this one.
Okay, I totally understand that. Councillor Higgins.
Yes, it's in relation to 4.2. I don't have any interest in any of the applications, but on this particular application, I have always stood down because I think the ownership of the land has changed over time, and I knew the person who had the land. So it's 2000593 BAC, and just for transparency of the council's decision making, I will leave the room and not vote. But it's not because of any interest at all. It's because I've taken that stance as it's gone through all the way through.
Okay.
Chair.
Sorry, Councillor.
Yes, sorry, Chair. I seem to be missing my raised hand button, unless the layout has changed on Zoom. So I haven't been able to raise my hand, but I would like to declare interest in the following items. 4.1, after I've taken some legal advice from the monitoring officer today, and basically the monitoring officer advised me to inform the committee is that that I have a strong interest in cricket and matters in the borough. However, just to make it absolutely clear, that will not in any way bias or shape my view of the decision-making process tonight in relation to item 4.1. In relation to 4.2 and 4.3, the land in question, was previously owned by the leader of the council, Joe Orshan, who I have been informed has declared his interests, and on the basis of that, I will declare a personal non-pecuniary interest, but due to probably perceived bias due to being socially linked to Councillor Orshan, in the fact that we have interest in walking, etc., and holidays for walking. I think for transparency reasons, I will not take part in either of those agenda items, and I will leave the meeting.
Okay, but you are going to take part in 4.1, are you?
I am indeed, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for letting us know. Right. Thank you. Bear with me for one moment, please. Right, item 4, schedule of applications. Now I need to find them. Here we go.
Councillor Glancy, before we start on item 4.1, I will take out Councillor Steadman into the attendees, if that's okay with you.
That's brilliant. So thank you very much. We'll see you later, Councillor Steadman. Thank you. Right, item 4.1. Sorry, Councillor Higgins, you have your hand raised.
Yes, yeah, it's from what Councillor Brown stated. As I understand, item 4.3, the land isn't or hasn't been in the ownership of the leader of the council. He owns or did own land around it, so it's just for that record that 4.3, that land, as I understand, isn't owned by the leader of the council.
Yes. Now, before we move on, based on that as well, I have heard from Councillor Orson, just to clarify this. Ward Councillor Orson will not be making representations tonight regarding agenda items 4.2 due to a disclosable pecuniary interest, and agenda item 4.3 due to a personal interest, because, as you say, he owns the land surrounding the land in question. He doesn't actually own land. Okay, so if that could be noted as well, that would be great for the minutes. Thank you. Now, moving on to item 4.1, we have the Beaver Cricket Club at Harston Lane, Nipton, a new cricket pavilion, plus car parking and ancillary buildings. And I'd like to hand you over to Toby Webbs, who will deliver the officer's report on this one. So over to you, Toby. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I just say next, Louise, when it's time to move on? Yeah. So, yeah, introducing the application for this new cricket pavilion and indoor cricket nets. This application was in 2019. It's taken quite a long time through the design review process. It was in my hands whilst the registered parking gardens, the adjacent Beaver Castle registered parking gardens, were grade 2 listed, and I worked with the applicant's architect HSSP and Nick Cooper to try and find a satisfactory design solution that would amount to, or certainly mitigate, the impact of harm to the setting of the registered parking gardens, and also the wider, longer views towards Beaver Castle itself, which is grade 1. Halfway through the process, the parking gardens were upgraded to grade 2 star listing, which brought in Historic England's guidance, because they are a statutory consultee on grade 1 and grade 2 star. They were satisfied with the impact on the views towards the grade 1 listed castle, but worked closely with the applicant's architect to find a satisfactory design solution that would do as much as it could to mitigate the impact on the setting of the parking gardens, and then handed that back over to us to determine the public benefits that might arise from the proposal of a new cricket pavilion and indoor cricket nets. Now, those public benefits I have determined to be sufficient enough to outweigh the harm caused to the setting of the registered parking gardens, which I identified as less than substantial harm in accordance with what paragraph 196 of the NPPF. The public benefits were presented to me as part of the design and access statement. I met with the members of the cricket trustees, and we discussed the proposals, the community benefits of the proposals, the outreach programs that the trust implements through its summer series. Of course, they are always subject to bad weather, and so therefore the need for indoor pavilions. When it's raining, they can continue their program of activities. The present cricket pavilion, which is on the site, is a modern blockwork structure, which has been there for over 10 years. It amounts to less than substantial harm to the setting of the parking gardens. So the replacement with this structure, which you now see, if you could move on, Louise, from this is the present arrangement, and then here we have the top view. You can see the grey is the indoor cricket lanes. There are 3 lanes in total. This is a requirement to allow for multi-use for the space, so it could be extended to basketball and indoor football and things like that. The ridge height is determined by Sport England's requirements. For this to be an indoor cricket nets, then it needs to have a certain height, hence the ridge. The massing of the indoor cricket pavilion is very much geometric, simple box-like structure, and there's not much you can do about that. But then we have attempted to seamlessly integrate the cricket pavilion with the indoor nets through a green roof structure, a flat green roof structure. That provides a visual break with the cricket pavilion, which is a more traditional structure of gables, and would appear as any other traditional cricket pavilion that you might see up and down the country. The parking has been, we have attempted to soften the parking with the use of Grasscrete, which was very effective at the engine yard on the other side of the estate, and then resin-bound gravel. So we've tried to soften the parking as much as possible. So that is the proposal. There is less than substantial harm to the setting of the parkland. If you just want to give some 3D views, Louise. So you can see, this would be the view from the cricket field. This would also be the view if you were standing in the registered parking gardens. So you're not actually in the parkland itself. This is on the fringes of it. So if you were to be standing in the parking gardens, you would look towards this structure. You can see that the bank of grass and then the flat roofed grass roof area is somewhat softening the impact of the indoor cricket nets themselves. They are articulated in terms of the facade material treatment through a series of vertical timber fins, and then which you can see more clearly here, and you can see the ancillary buildings there. The link buildings between the two are grassed as to conceal them. Maybe one more, Louise. Yeah. So the view that you see here is the one you would see from the roadside, perhaps the most prominent view with regards to the public and public views towards the parkland and towards the castle. There's an aperture that runs along the ground floor of the indoor nets with some motifs relating to cricket. And yeah, overall, this is the way in which we have decided we can mitigate the impact of this development on the setting of the parking gardens. And the community programs that come with the trust are the ones that are considered to outweigh the harm caused to the setting of the parking gardens. So that's all from me.
Thank you very much for that. I can see that Councillor Chandler has just joined, and I think she's missed the officer's presentation. Perhaps you can confirm that, Natasha.
Councillor Glancy, she joined 2 to 3 minutes into the presentation, so she did
Okay.
join at the beginning of the
So she'd
presentation. I
missed
don't
the-
know whether she can confirm that she was able to hear the presentation as soon as she came in, but she did join us then about 2 or 3 minutes in.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chandler? He's on mute. Is Councillor Chandler still connected?
Yes, I am.
Okay, hello there. Hello.
It's lack of picture. I've got no pictures at all.
Okay. Did you manage to hear the full
Yes.
officer's presentation?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of Toby Ebbs before we hear the speakers? I can't see any hands raised, so I assume no. Right, so this evening on this item, we have 3 speakers. The first one is Peter Carr, who is from Belvoir Parish Council. If you could call him forward, please, Natasha.
I'll call him through now.
Thank you. There we go. Good evening, Mr. Carr. You're on mute at the moment.
Hopefully you can hear me now.
We can do. Right. I dare say you know the rules. It's 3 minutes
Yes.
to deliver your address to the committee. So when you're ready, if you'd like to start.
Good evening. The Parish Council fully supports the Trust's work teaching children outdoor countryside pursuits. Bear with me a second. However, we oppose the proposed location for a large sports hall to be used for indoor activities. 3 years ago, the Trust presented their plans to local residents. There were many concerned Belvoir Estate tenants who asked the PC to represent their views. The PC reviewed all feedback and unanimously agreed to object on 4 grounds. Firstly, size, blocky appearance and height. Plans subsequently submitted to planning included a further 25% increase in height to over 21 feet. The 10,000 square foot footprint is the size of a small supermarket. Historic England state this will be dominant, incongruous, and cause harm to the now Grade 2 star listed parkland. The wonderful view from Nipton Lane across the cricket ground towards the castle will be sadly lost forever, with resultant damage to the adjacent conservation areas. Secondly, location. As well as the visual damage caused, a location nearer to a population centre would surely attract greater usage. Following Historic England's negative feedback in November, the Trust were offered an alternative 5-acre site in Bottisford, adjacent to the football ground. There is no evaluation of alternative sites appended to this application. Third, sustainability. The sports hall will not generate sufficient earnings to cover running costs based on sport and educational activities alone. It will require revenue from weddings and corporate type events, which have historically given rise to noise complaints. Grantham Cricket Club plan a 4-net sports hall 5 miles away on the outskirts of Grantham, adjacent to the new bypass. A collaborative project would seem to be a win-win opportunity rather than a competition for punters. The Grantham Club maintain wedding events are essential to cover overhead costs and assert this as standard practice for indoor cricket venues to remain viable. Fourthly, traffic with 92 car and coach parking spaces.
Harston Bank is 400 yards away en route to Grantham, with a narrow, steep blind bend, which is extremely high risk for coaches, often requiring oncoming vehicles and horses to stop and back up. The PC fully recognise the importance of children's sport with rising obesity and wish for a successful conclusion. We urge the Planning Committee to turn down this application in the proposed location, but ask the Trust to objectively evaluate other sites closer to population centres with better road access, including Bottisford and sites identified in the Melton Plan for sports development. If the committee believe the public interest benefit significantly outweighs the damage caused in the proposed location, we would strongly urge consideration of 3 specific actions. 1, mitigate visual damage by restricting the external height to that of the existing pavilion, in using excavation to retain the internal height. 2, introduce a
sorry. I think we have all this in writing. Have you got much more to go, because
no,
you're out of your 3 minutes?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do you want to quickly finish then, and we'll hear the rest?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mitigate visual damage by restricting the external height to that of the existing pavilion, but use excavation to return the internal height. Introduce a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit between Nipton and Harston and consider a traffic management system on Harston Bank. And 3, using licensing, prevent problematic large events such as wedding and corporate events.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have any questions of the speaker? I think we have one hand raised, and that's Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wonder if Mr. Carr can explain to me why Bottisford. We have a very successful cricket club in Bottisford, Cricket and Social Club. They are run by an extremely good committee of mainly business people. And I just wonder why everything should come to Bottisford. We're being absolutely snowed under with one thing after another. We can't move for traffic, so why bring more traffic into Bottisford? And when we've got a successful club that has a really successful junior team, they have 8-year-olds upwards playing competitive cricket. So please tell me why it should come to Bottisford. Thank you.
I think there is no specific reason why it should be located in Bottisford. I was giving an example of an opportunity based on an offer of land, which was put forward to the applicants. I have no specific reason why Bottisford is the preferred location. It's just an example of an alternative which doesn't cause the damage in location that this causes.
Okay, Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised.
I do, thank you. Mr. Carr, can you tell me how long there's been a cricket club? There has been a cricket pavilion, obviously not like this one, but how long there has been one on that site?
I believe it is in the 80 to 100 years time frame.
Yeah, I'm not quite that old, but when my parents used to take me on a Sunday evening, and we used to go to the pub first, and they used to get me a little packet of crisps with a little blue salt thing, and then we used to go and sit there and listen and watch obviously the cricket. So it has been there for a very long time, and I was just wondering, you say about the traffic, and I appreciate it being bigger, but has it been a problem before that? That's all I was asking.
With respect to traffic specifically?
Yes.
The only issue we have with traffic at the moment is with the Beaver Bees parents delivering their children on Friday nights, who arrive short of time and tend to speed through Harston, down Harston Bank to deliver their kids, and then return in a couple of hours' time to pick them up. The other instance is the Beaver Cricket and Countryside Trust who are doing a great job at the moment without using an indoor sports hall, use coaches to bring their children from schools around Leicestershire and some in Grantham and they use coaches to deliver the children to and from the ground. And that has been problematic previously, with coaches parked up in Harston sometimes, waiting to go down and pick children up, which was doubling the amount of traffic on Harston Bank, coach type traffic.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, Mr. Carr. Based on what you've just been talking to with the councillor, the council just previously, you're saying about the coaches are waiting in Harston Village to come down. Surely by doing this and having the big car park there, that would alleviate that problem completely.
Yes and no. In terms of parking in Harston, there will be no need for that. However, what the proposal is to bring children into the cricket ground 12 months a year rather than the current spring and summer activity. So it also enables a wider time span during the day to be used. So there will be more traffic related to greater throughput.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Mr. Carr. I think that's all the questions for you this evening. So I'm asked Natasha to move you back to the waiting area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second speaker this evening is James Brown of Rural Insight, who is an objector. Good evening, Mr. Brown.
Good evening.
Hello. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, and if you'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Right. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Scales, one of the 41 objectors to the application and the owners of Harston Hall. Their property is located approximately 450 metres to the west of the proposed development and sits in an elevated position with far-reaching views over the Grade 2 star registered parking garden. My clients are concerned about the potential impact the proposed development will have on the locality. Concerns include landscaping materials, light pollution, and a significant increase in traffic on narrow country roads. But in the limited time available, they wish me to make the following observations and objections. The Grade 1 listed castle and now upgraded Grade 2 star capability brown landscape are without doubt the most important heritage assets within the borough. The Gardens Trust have objected, stating the proposed development is totally incompatible with its sensitive location. They go on to say this proposal would cause harm not just to the registered landscape, but also to the setting of the castle. Historic England have adopted the same line, saying the scale and design of the cricket school building would make a dominant, incongruous addition to the landscape. If erected, it would in certain locations compete with the dominance of the castle. They go on to say that in our view, this would cause harm to the significance of the registered parking garden and to the significance that the castle derives from its setting. Under these circumstances, the NPPF requires there to be a clear and convincing justification. And where development proposals will lead to less than substantial harm, the harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal. In our view, this application does not provide a clear and convincing justification as to why the indoor cricket centre needs to be adjacent to the pavilion and pitches and situated within the most important heritage setting within the borough. According to the business plan, the indoor centre will be used for more hours for fitness classes and basketball use per annum than indoor cricket. My clients and other objectors do not believe that alternative sites have been considered and that the alternative uses proposed at this early stage are just the thin end of the wedge. My clients support the Trust's missions, aims and objectives. They also accept that the condition of the pavilion, including the lack of disabled access, clearly need addressing. However, the proposed development of such a large, incongruous indoor cricket school is neither proportionate nor appropriate.
Lecture.
Grade 2 listed start listed Rosewood Park and Garden. Furthermore, the infrastructure, in particular local road network, is not capable or appropriate to support the level of vehicle movements required to sustain the business plan and the 92 car park spaces. My clients respectfully ask you to discharge your statutory duty and refuse the proposed development in accordance with paragraphs 194 and 196 of the MBPF and failing to conform with local policies BE2, BE8, EN1 and EN13. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have any questions of Mr. Brown, members? Can't see any hands raised. No. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Nice to hear from you. Thank you. Right, the third speaker this evening is Darren Bicknell, who's from the Beaver Cricket and Countryside Trust. Good evening, Mr. Bicknell.
Good evening.
Again.
Again, yes, indeed.
Okay. You have 3 minutes to address the committee, so if you'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Madam Chair and members of the committee, this application seeks permission for a new pavilion and indoor cricket school at the Nipton Cricket Ground on the fringe of Beaver Castle Park and Gardens. The new facility will replace the existing pavilion, which is an eyesore and not fit for purpose. We recognise the site's sensitive location, so the scheme has been the subject of numerous redesigns both before and during the application process. The current design has emerged from a design review process between our architect, your conservation officer, and Historic England. The Trust is a standalone charity, not an extension of the Beaver Estate. We have a 50-year lease on the ground, leaving us free to do our work without intervention from the estate. We are a not-for-profit organisation, and our purpose is to provide life skills and learning through sport and countryside education to children with special needs, underprivileged and mainstream primary school children within a 30-mile radius of the castle. To date, we have inspired more than 26,000 children to lead healthy, active lives. So why build now? The current facilities do not meet modern standards and restrict both the cricket club and our work. We wish to develop our community and rural deprivation programmes and work all year round, raising our numbers from 3,000 children to 5,000 children per year. We are at the mercy of English weather. With no indoor facility, a rainy day leads to cancellations and hundreds of disappointed children. We wish to support our partnership with the Beaver Cricket Club, who have been part of the community for over 100 years and developed girls and disability cricket, key pillars of the ECB cricket strategy and vital to their future. There are some staggeringly sad facts around the health of young children, which we read and hear about every day, and COVID-19 has highlighted that it has never been more important to support our young people, many of whom are suffering mental health challenges. So why Nipton? The ground, our home for 12 years now, is a beautiful, unique and inspirational venue for the children who visit us. We introduce thousands of children to the countryside each year. We wish them to enjoy and cherish what we have here and realise that they must protect it for the future. If they never see it, they will never know what to look after. Our many loyal and vital volunteers support us because of what we do and, as importantly, where we do it. The Trust has an energy to continue to grow and support our community, and this new facility will enable that to happen. It is a project which helps deliver Melton Borough Council's own sports plan vision, which is to inspire more people to be more active more often. We truly hope this planning committee will support an independent project helping to develop future generations at no cost to the council or the local taxpayers. We understand your decision has to balance any harm to heritage assets against the public benefit of the proposal. The public benefits, in our opinion, and as hopefully you can all see, are considerable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Faulkner, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Bicknell, the previous two speakers have both mentioned the 92 parking spaces. I'm just wondering How many people at any one time are you expecting to be using the facilities? Are all 92 spaces likely to be used at any one time?
Well, the main time that actually they are used is on Friday nights, which are already in place. Friday nights is the Beaver Bees. We have our own children, often up to 70 or 80 children. The cricket club have up to 30, 40, 50 children, plus all the parents. During the other times, there will be much less than that. But the idea of having those facilities is effectively just to give us some extra space if we should need it.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, I see you've got your physical hand raised, so as you can't use the hand raised.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I don't know what's ever happened.
Don't worry, don't worry.
I don't know what's.
I just have to remember to look at you when I,
yes,
when I ask for questions.
Sorry. Darren, just got a couple of questions for you. The first question I have is, what would be the viability of the cricket club if this wasn't to go ahead? What sort of impact would that have? That's the first question.
Yeah.
My second question is, do the children who, and many of them I've read from your documentation, are deprived children, do they also benefit from going around the estate and seeing the wider countryside issues and facilities and activities that go on in the estate? That's my two questions.
Thank you. In answer to your first question, the cricket club have been in existence for over 100 years, but are finding it increasingly difficult to sustain their current levels due to their facilities. You know, the cricket club, to access future funding streams from people like ECB, et cetera, really do now need to try and work towards having disabled people in the ground, women and girls playing the game. And those facilities, for any of you that have been there, are the biggest reason why they can't have disabled people involved, because there are no disabled facilities. They can't have women there because the women just would, well, hate the place, quite frankly. So I think it's a massive challenge for the cricket club moving forward to survive and sustain itself in its current facility. So hence the need for us to support them as well as ourselves in delivering this project. Secondly, as far as access around the grounds, obviously the children come into the ground. They spend most of the time, mainly from a safety point of view at the moment, on the cricket ground itself. We do have orienteering courses and stuff which do run into the estate. But one of the things I would like to stress, and I'll perhaps take this opportunity, is as a standalone charity, we're not restricted by governing bodies to do what we do. The idea of being able to work all year round and grow and deliver more projects is to make the absolute maximum use of what we have around us. And that does include being able to take them out onto the estate, to look around the estate and work with the castle itself to give those children the best access. We already do have visits from the beaver hunt hounds, et cetera, which just wouldn't be possible in other locations. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hewson, you have your hand raised.
What sort of percentage is going to be coming in on buses, and will that increase sort of considerably if you're going to increase the numbers, or is it mostly people coming in cars?
I foresee that most people will come in cars. We will have schools coming in, and our ambition is to have schools coming in all year round. But interestingly, one of the points that was raised against us was the excess traffic and buses parking up in Harston. In reality, at the moment, we often have two buses, and this has happened for the last 11 years. We have two buses driving in, and because they cannot get into the ground often or cannot park, they then have to go back away again. And then, of course, they come back again at 3 o'clock, and then they have to go away again. So it's effectively 8 bus journeys going on. So with the new facility and the new car parking, that will be halved immediately. And there will obviously be no need at all for parking up in Harston, because they will be able to park within the cricket ground. Through the winter time, I would anticipate that we would have numbers of around 50 to 60 children coming in on one day, which will then go down to 1 bus per day. So 1 journey in and 1 journey out. So the idea that we're creating a lot more traffic around buses, I don't feel is correct. Yes, there will be more traffic through cars, but of course it will be you know, you're not going to have more than 30 to 40 people in that hall at any one time, even if you hired out all of the cricket nets. So I really don't see that there's going to be, you know, huge banking of traffic just waiting to get in. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bindloss.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Bicknell. I just wondered whether you saw this as being somewhere purely for sports to be held, whether you anticipate this being used for, say, weddings and other functions.
It is absolutely not my intention to run this as a wedding venue. The only thing when I first ever spoke to the parish council and we told them what our plans were, we were asked the very same question. And I said, I would happily never have a wedding in the place at all, ever. However, I would, as I think a responsible person who would be responsible for running the facility, I wouldn't like to say that we would never, ever have one, purely because if I get to the end of the year and we're £10,000 short of sustaining ourselves, I think it would be madness to insert any sort of clause to say that I couldn't have one. That said, it's not my intention. My experience, when I finished playing cricket, I was the commercial director at the Welbeck Sports and Social Club up in Mansfield. And we did host weddings. It was part of a commercial venture and it was an absolute nightmare. And it's definitely not something we want to go in. And we see ourselves sustaining ourselves through our own fundraising, through having events in there, through sport, but also we have opportunities through the trust, through the good work that we do with local businesses to obtain sponsorship, etc., etc. I don't see a position where we need to get to the point of having weddings. I really don't.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Bindloss, still have your hand raised. Thank you, it's gone now. Any other questions?
Mr. Wood.
Yeah, sorry. My hand facility or
Okay.
My virtual hand facility also doesn't work like Councillor Brown's.
Oh, this is difficult having to spot everybody waving their hands, but never mind, we'll manage.
Yeah, all I'd ask is obviously mention has been made of alternative locations for the development. I was just wondering if you could let us have any insight as to whether or not those have been considered, and if so, why they aren't viable alternatives to the development that's been put forward.
Okay, thank you. The biggest reason is the reason why we have been so successful with our children and with schools wanting to come and visit us and with organisations funding our activities is because of where we are and because of the value of the children coming out into what, as I mentioned earlier, is an absolutely inspirational venue. We benefit hugely from the access of the land, being able to do orienteering, being able to do fishing, etc., etc. We benefit from the hounds coming. We benefit from the birds of prey that are based up in the castle. So all of our work that the schools want to come and see is on the estate. That's first and foremost. As far as the other venues are concerned, I was slightly surprised to hear of Bottisford being mentioned earlier because it is news to me. And I'm pretty sure that if we went to Bottisford, we would have to buy the land, in which case, that's an extra cost to us. And we, why would our children want to come and see us in Bottisford to come and play cricket alone when at the moment we can offer so much more? Grantham is going to be a commercial venue. I've heard of it. Whether it ever happens or not, I'm not entirely sure. I think they're behind us in time frame, or certainly a long way behind us, and they're going to use theirs very much as a commercial building. So would that allow us space to have our children in there paying no fees? I don't think so. So, have we considered other venues? Yes, we looked at one or two, but it just does not work for us. And finally, the idea that we are here and want to support the cricket club to survive is another reason why we would like to do it on this cricket ground, because I think without us, the cricket club would never find a way of generating income or funding enough to rebuild their own pavilion. So without us, I could see the cricket club sadly disappearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner, have your hand raised. Do you have another question?
That wasn't a question. I was just trying to help the people that can't find the raise hand button because I couldn't find mine. But when you click on the participants button, you have the on the bottom of the screen, you have the invite, mute me, and then there's 3 dots. I found it by pressing the 3 dots. The raise hand function comes up then.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you.
That might help you.
Madam Chair, would I be remiss in one more comment?
I think you've had, unless it's to respond to a question about a comment, then no, you've already had your 3
No.
minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I would like to move you back to the waiting area again, but thank you very much for joining us this evening. Right, that completes the speakers for this evening. Officers, do you wish to respond to anything you've heard this evening? I dare say you do.
Yeah, if I may.
Louise, actually, you're good to come in, are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've got my hand. I'll just lower it again. I noticed some of the discussion and questioning was regard to alternative locations. I just want to point out that that's not a material planning consideration, and obviously we're assessing the application in front of us in that location. There's no need for the applicants to demonstrate alternate locations in this instance.
Yes, thank you for that, and thank you for clarifying that as well. Thank you. Right, now members, you've heard the speakers and you've heard from the officers. Over to you. Do you have any questions, first of all, of officers, of Toby or of Louise, or even Jim? I can't see any hands raised. And I'm even looking for the two waving, so no. Okay, well, it's over to you to debate. Councillor Wood. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems to me that what the crux of this is, as far as I'm concerned, is this sort of balancing act really between development and conservation. And in 5.1.3, even Historic England sort of agree really that it's about a trade-off between sort of public benefit and conservation. And from what I've heard and from what I've read, at the moment, I would be minded to feel that the balance is very much that to allow this to go to head would be ultimately, you know, a public benefit. But I'm obviously sort of still willing to hear what other members of the committee have to say.
Okay. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to move the recommendation to permit. I think this is a fantastic idea. I've heard a lot about what happens at Nipton with a lot of underprivileged children. We often don't realise how many children don't understand and know the countryside. When I went down last Friday to have another look at it, I watched the red kites for 5 minutes. How many children get the chance to see a red kite? The hounds, birds of prey. That's a great learning curve for them. It's educational. There's also the benefit of the cricket and keeping them fit. I mean, I played bowls at Bottisford for a long time, and the bowling green there is adjacent to the cricket pitch. And the little boys at 8 coming in their whites to play a competitive match, I thought it was very moving, because you hear so much about kids sitting playing on tablets and not getting outside. And for any child these days to be outside and active, it's got to be a tremendous boost. And it's not done without a lot of volunteers. And I know several people that help at Nipton, and I think it's a fantastic facility, and I would like to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next name I can see on the list is Councillor Posnett. Now, are you willing to second the motion to permit, Councillor Posnett?
I am prepared to second it, yes.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to make a few points.
Yep.
I mean, there are 2 or 3 reasons why I'm in favour of it. One of them, I think the main one, is that it fits in with so many of our policies within the local plan that we made, that was passed and accepted. I think the reason that this scheme caters particularly to disabilities is something that is really close to my heart. There are so many things that disabled youngsters can do, but never get the opportunity to do. The majority of public play areas do not cater for people with disabilities. And a friend of mine is part of a worldwide disability football scheme, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And just because you've got a disability doesn't mean to say that you perhaps can't play cricket, but it is the wider things that they do that rural areas never give children. It's the wider appreciation of the countryside. I was horrified when a friend of mine's son visited with his girlfriend about 12 years ago. She'd never seen cows in fields before, or sheep, and she was absolutely fascinated. And as Councillor Chandler just said, when I visited on Sunday and was able to go into the park and look at where it was, and the kites were still there, and we were able to see them, I just see that it's where it fits, won't detract. Once people have got used to something being there, then they'll be blind to it. You know, they just accept it. But I just think where it is separate from the parkland, and I just think the benefits that it has, particularly to young people and the wider community, are immeasurable. And so I'm really pleased to second this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bindloss.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just start by saying I completely support the mission of the Trust. I think it's a really, really good one. It's great. However, having said that, I do have a serious concern with the fact that there is no footpath that goes between the site and the existing path. I'm assuming that not everybody's going to be coming there in a car. There will be people from the village that walk, cycle, and it's so important that pedestrian safety, and we all accept that, but pedestrian safety is considered. And I think that by not having that footpath, it really is a concern to me. That said, I think that this is a really, really positive programme, and I think it's really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, I agree with what the proposer and seconder was saying in terms of the benefits for those who are trying to weigh up the balance. Just from what I do know is on the portfolio holder for growth and regeneration, some of the cricket clubs are contacting myself and the team in terms of getting grants because they can't do fundraising at the moment. I won't mention the particular club who I'm referring to here, but what they were saying is they're really trying to attract youngsters to come to their clubs now. And it's not just attracting them from other cricket clubs, it's trying to attract their interests across sport in general. And, you know, I mean, you know, I think the development of the England national cricket team has been nothing short of amazing. Since winning the Ashes, I think back in 2005, we've just gone on strength to strength, and that's certainly shown the investment at the grassroots. I think it was Councillor Posnet and Chandler were saying about facilities for disabled people, for girls. That's something we really do need to see in football a lot more as well. It's starting to come through, so this is really positive. That's all said. Going on the balance side for the public benefits, I do understand obviously the harms, and I like to conserve you know, the gardens and the council as well. But one of the greatest cricket grounds I've ever visited is at Bamburgh. You can watch a very traditional English sport just on the border of Scotland, near enough, and then you've got a fantastic castle at the background watching a bit of cricket there. It is fabulous. Now this is going to be a modern facility, and you can have that contrast which enhances old and new, but cricket is a very traditional sport, and I think the public benefits will outweigh the harms, and I think Heritage and Historic England have got it quite nailed on there as well. So I'm slightly leaning to the public benefits just outweighing it here, and it's going to be something that will sustain this club probably for the next generation.
Thank you, Councillor Higgins. I think you stole some of my words there. I was going to mention Bamburgh Castle and the cricket
Oh,
ground.
I'm sorry.
It's a very strong favourite of mine. So yes, but anyway, I shan't mention it now. So, thank you, Councillor Holmes.
Right.
There we go.
Yeah. Actually, you can hear me now, can't you? Yeah, I am in favour of this. Village cricket has been going for years and years and years. We put up with, when you live in an area, you put up with it. It isn't just putting up; it's enjoying. And to give facilities for young people as well as not such young people. It's something. It's a club. It's clubs, and it's people being able to enjoy the countryside and the facilities that gives. It's just one thing that I was a little bit concerned about. You were going to bund behind. I ought to have asked Toby about this. You were going to bund behind, and I can see how nice that would be. I haven't got, but all I'm concerned about, the water that we have got on the land at the moment. And when I went to look at it, went up to the hill to Harston, I've never seen so much water there. It was just sort of like in flood. And I know the type of land it is, and I just wondered whether that bund or whatever it is was actually going to render the cricket pitch below waterlogged. And it was just one little thought, and I don't know whether anybody could help me with that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on answer to that question, Toby or Louise?
We haven't assessed it with regards to impact on flood necessarily, or there isn't a sustainable urban drainage scheme or anything like that proposed. But if there are concerns, and then that's something which could be considered as an amendment to the design, or as an additional condition. So you could place an additional condition to ensure there's mitigation against potential impact on flooding.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just that we have so much water about. Never, ever have we seen so much water that we've got at this moment. It is quite amazing. My fellow councillor, but Eastwell Crossroads would agree with me how much water there is. And of course, it is ironstone land at Nipton, and so I just feel that ought
You're breaking up, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Holmes, we've lost you.
I'd finished.
Right. Okay. Sorry. But you'd broken up. So can I take it that, yes? Can I take it that you wish to add a condition to look at or investigate the potential risk of flooding of the cricket? Okay. And can I ask the proposer and seconder if they're willing to include that condition?
That's all. It's just
oh dear, you do sound strange.
Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up all the time. Okay, let's move on. If we move to the proposer, which is Councillor Chandler, are you willing to include a condition?
Yes, I'm more than happy.
Okay.
Chairman, I have some doubts about what the purpose of this condition would be, what planning purpose it would serve, because presumably the field is susceptible to flooding now.
I think the reason was we asked, well, Councillor Holmes asked the officer if any investigations had been made into the flooding risk. And he came back and said, no, there hadn't, but there could be a condition imposed to investigate the flooding risk.
If I may come back, Madam Chairman,
yes,
the field could possibly be drained now.
It could possibly be, but we don't know,
Yeah,
do we?
No,
So,
well, I mean, it's easy enough to find out.
yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay, so
I'm here now. Is that, can you hear me?
We're back again, right?
Yes, sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
It's like musical chairs. So,
Yeah.
Councillor Holmes.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, don't say you've gone again.
No, I'm still here.
Yeah. It was just that I thought it probably would be a good idea to have a condition on that, knowing how much water we have this year, and you don't want it to go down onto the pitch and waterlog it.
Okay.
That's all.
So, Councillor Chandler, do you think that the pitch is probably already drained because it's used for cricket anyway?
Most cricket pitches are, but I mean, I've no objection at all to it being a condition being placed on the permit.
Okay.
I think it's we put enough conditions on things these days. I'm sure another one won't make any difference.
Right. Councillor Posnett.
Yeah, I'm happy for that.
Are you in? Okay. Yeah. So, can we have some wording for that condition, please?
From me?
Well, no, from Councillor Chandler, because she's a proposer.
All right. Yeah.
That we ask that there's an investigation as to whether there are any land drains in the actual field itself, and whether or not it would be in the interests of the club to put some in, because it's not such an expense these days to mould some drains in at every 22 metres.
Yeah, it's probably a question that the agent could answer in actual fact, but if we add that to the condition. Okay, thank you. Councillor Faulkner, I see your hand is raised. You're on mute, Councillor Faulkner. There we go.
I'll do it that way. I didn't work on the space bar. A lot's been said about the visual impact of the facilities, but I think they've done a very good job at disguising it, shall we say. And it is right on the edge of the park, the castle, whereas the castle themselves, for a lot of the year, have a massive, great, big white marquee there for weddings and that lot. Hundreds of cars going there, and that's got to look an awful lot worse than what's being proposed here. So, yeah, based on what I've seen of what they're doing with this one, I'm quite in favour of it.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hewson.
I'd just like to, if we could put any a condition or whatever, if we could do some like mixed species planting of traditional area plants around it, obviously not just to screen the area a little bit better and make it a softer approach for people looking from the roadside.
Toby, is there already some planting planned?
Yeah, there is a landscaping plan, and we've considered that to be sufficient to mitigate the impact from the roadside.
If it could include like some, like wildflower landscaping as well, it just sort of would just trying to soften the blow a bit and make it a bit more appealing.
Well, I'll let the councillors discuss that.
Thank you. Back to Councillor Chandler and Posnett on this one. Are you happy with the landscaping that's included, or would you like to have it improved?
I'm happy with what's there, Madam Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Posnett?
Yeah, I think that they've worked close enough with Toby, and I'm happy with what they're going to do. So
Okay,
no problems.
thank you. That's brilliant. Councillor Brown, I can see you with your physical hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just like to say that overall I do think that the benefit of this project outweighs any harm being done. I think there's a lot of effort gone into try and put something that's more contemporary that will sit, I think, quite nicely alongside the landscape, etc. But I think that the benefits to me is what the amount of young people that are going to actually benefit from participating in not just sports but countryside activities, etc., and those more from a deprived background, which is very, very important. But also the sustainability of cricket. It is so hard, I can tell you, from somebody being involved in it, to sustain a cricket club, and to have some facility like this and that's able to attract young people into it, and especially the amount of clubs that would give the right arm to be able to get more disabled people involved in cricket, more girls involved in cricket, which then brings more families, which then brings more income, etc. But also the educational aspect of things and learn about the countryside, everything that Councillor Chandler and Councillor Posnett have said, you know, and also what Councillor Higgins has said in relation to the economic and the benefits that's coming. It's going to keep people employed. If it grows, it'll employ more coaches, which puts more money in people's pockets, which puts more spend in the local area. And if people are coming in, hopefully when the you know, stuff like the Manage Arms around the corner, etc., will benefit from that, from parents dropping in for a bite to eat, a drink, etc. You know, that's what a rural community is all about. And I fully support the recommendation of Councillor Chandler, and followed by the second Councillor Posnett. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right. No other speakers? No. Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal to permit. I must admit, on the whole, I feel the benefits far outweigh the harm in this instance, and I find no reason to disagree with officer's recommendation to permit. However, I do welcome the drainage, the investigation into a drainage need, and if necessary to produce a drainage scheme. I think that's a sort of extra precaution. But I do understand that most cricket pitches are drained already, and I'm sure they've taken that into consideration, but we're just dotting the I's and crossing the T's here. So if we're all finished with our debate, let's go to the vote. I'll go through the names alphabetically. And the first one on my list is Councillor Bindloss. Are you for, against, or abstaining?
For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown?
For.
Councillor Chandler?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner?
For.
I'm next and I'm for. Thank you. Councillor Hewson?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins?
For, quite literally.
Yes, yes, or a 6, all right. Councillor Holmes?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
For.
Thank you. And Councillor Steadman is not in the room. So thank you very much. So that is passed. So thank you everybody for that one. And I now understand that Councillor Higgins will leave the room. So if we could remove him, please, to the waiting area. I understand Councillor Higgins will be leaving the meeting physically, and then we may well dial back in.
I will, Chair. If someone can just call me or whatever, just on the other one, because I'm trying to save. I've got internet issues, so thank you.
I'll try and remember, and if I don't, please, Natasha, could you prompt me to send a message? Okay.
Councillor Clancy, I think it was Councillor Higgins and Councillor Brown that will be leaving for this one. I think that's correct.
Right. Okay, and Councillor Brown will be leaving as well. So thank you very much, and we'll see you later.
That'll be. I'm out for the next 2 items, Chair. Okay.
So you're leaving the meeting totally now.
Yeah, because I can't participate in either debate.
Okay, and I don't think I have anything for item 5, urgent business, but okay.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. Right, item 4.2. 20/00593, variation of condition, field OS 2713 and 2100, Longcliffe Hill, Old Dalby. I think this is going to be Louise who will be addressing the committee. Yes, we've got a nod. So over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a bit of a lengthy update, and indeed things have been moving all the way up to today, actually. Probably best I just read it out. So the LLFA consultation response to the additional information submitted has been received, and they raise no objections. Members will have received the comments in full prior to this evening's meeting. The result of the information now being received from the LLFA supersedes the recommendation that was contingent upon its receipt. Therefore, the recommendation of this application should now be reliant upon the response of the LLFA. Sorry. The agent has clarified that none of the 5-bedroom dwellings have been constructed on the site and confirmed the condition ensuring the 2.5-storey dwellings do not exceed 9.2 metres in height will be adhered to on site, as it can be ensured during construction the dwellings do not exceed that height. The agent has also clarified that the ditch in the southeast corner of the site served as land drainage to the field and to the old farm road. This has been broken out and is now part of the highway entrance and subsequently goes into the new drainage system. The ditch could be filled as it now serves no purpose with the new drainage, although a 225mm diameter pipe to serve the gullies was inserted before the new system was installed. The LLFA have provided consent for the filling of the redundant ditch. The agent has also clarified that adjacent to plot 28 on the path, there are 4.1 metres to the centre of the hedge on the tightest point and 3.9 metres to the outside of the hedge. Therefore, a 900mm instead of a 1 metre space. He advised the hedge can be trimmed further if needed. With regards to the removal of the east-west hedge, there remains a standing objection from LCC Ecology on its removal. With this in mind, it is proposed to add a further condition should permission be granted, which retains the existing hedge. Certain conditions will need to be changed to accommodate these amendments. So just to recap, that's details in relation to the drainage, the heights, the ditch, the spacing for the hedge and the retention of the hedge as well. So if I just now share my screen and go through the presentation with you. There we go. Okay, so the application comprises variations of the development approved under 18.01111 full for residential development for a total of 36 dwellings. The application seeks to vary this permission with changes to the layout, footpath and obscure glazing, and provides additional information relating to surface water drainage, surface water management, archaeology, foul and surface drainage, materials, landscaping and the ridge heights of 2.5-storey dwellings. So the proposed layout broadly follows the approved scheme with no changes to the highway layout or general layout of dwellings. There is no objection from the Highway Authority to the site layout. The proposal also seeks to realign footpath G89 that runs towards the southern part of the site before running north adjacent to the eastern boundary. And this is, as I've just explained, the pinch point as described on this plot here. So when we look at landscaping, along with comments regarding the retention of the existing hedge, comments have also been received from the ecology team relating to the northern and western boundaries, where there are no buffers between the hedges and the domestic gardens, which are noted. However, should such buffers be incorporated, the developable space would be significantly reduced and achieving a satisfactory scheme would become challenging. This was also the case with the extant approval, and it was accepted previously. So what I have now is a number of slides which go on to various elevations and designs. Members will have received these in full prior to this evening's meeting, so I don't want to spend too much time on them, but just to briefly highlight a couple of them to you. So this one is the proposed garage plans. We then move on to one of the bungalows, a further bungalow design. And then we get to plot 25, which is one of the 2.5 stories. So this is one of the plots which I've previously mentioned, where they'll be not been constructed yet and will not exceed the 9.2 metres in height, which was previously stipulated. So again, I don't want to spend time going through all of the plots because I know you have received these in full prior to tonight's meeting. So I'll just quickly run through these. And we should get to a materials plan. There we are. So the materials have been included in the submitted details and reflect a traditional build with the use of red brick and tiles with cream windows and timber doors. The proposal is recommended for approval, but with the recommendation now altered following the submission of comments from the LLFA. Therefore, the revised recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions as set out in this report, along with the amendments following the receipt of comments from the LLFA, additional plans, amended plan numbers, and the retention of the existing hedge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Louise before we start hearing the speakers this evening? Nope. Okay, thank you. We have 2 speakers this evening. I can find my list. The first one is Councillor Kim Lee from Nether Broughton and Old Dalby Parish Council. If you could bring Councillor Lee forward, please, Natasha. Good evening. Good evening, Councillor Lee. You've just jumped around my screen, so I can see you now. Everything moves around. I dare say you know by now we have 3 minutes to address the committee. So if you'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for hearing me on behalf of Broughton and Old Dalby Parish Council and the local community. I wish to address you in relation to 3 conditions in particular. In relation to condition 2, which is the approved plans variation, in relation to condition 7, which is the footpath verge condition, and in relation to condition 17, which governs the height of the properties. My representations on behalf of the council and the community are that if you choose to approve these variations, you retain conditions 2, you retain condition 7, and you consider retaining condition 17 in their present form. If I can first of all talk to you about condition 2. This is a variation to the approved plans. It covers the footprint of a number of properties within the proposed development, the proposed variation. It covers floor space. It covers a conversion of half of the garages on the bungalows into effectively accommodation or extra rooms. This goes against the spirit and detail of the original condition 2. In the submission of the parish council and in the view of the local community, this is development, this is trying to gain additional advantages on the part of the developer and his current and previous landowning cohorts by stealth. The addition of more floor space and eliminating part of the use of the garages will increase the density of the development and will have repercussions on the highway situation, both within the development and also on Longcliffe Hill itself. That is the view of local residents, not necessarily the view of highways, but its experience on the ground. I invite you to retain condition 2 in its present form. I now address you in relation to condition 7, which governs the footpath and the verge. The invitation on behalf of the parish council and the local community in very strong terms, this is a major issue in Old Dalby, is that you retain this condition unaltered. Whilst I welcome the developer's concession, minor concession, to retain the east-west footpath, what your officer has not said, but what is clear from your papers, is that the footpath itself will be reduced to a pinch point, a very narrow pinch point adjacent to plot 28. I've had representations from walkers who say this will have an adverse effect on the usage, the amenity, and the actual enjoyments of that footpath. It's not only local residents, if you have read the consultation responses you've received, but the Melton Mowbray Ramblers Association support that. So when officers claim that this is inconsequential, that is not the facts. The facts are on the ground. The pinch point will have an adverse effect on the footpath. Whilst addressing you in relation to that, as part of the overall application within condition 2 amendments of the approved plans, we're losing 6 to 8 metres of hedgerow because the developer wants to ensure that a certain plot is extended, hedgerow is removed. And the hedgerow is an ancient feature of this site, which was there adjacent to the old traditional footpath long before this development was proposed. This developer, with the greatest of respect to him, is not to be trusted. There have been flagrant breaches of conditions in relation to the first 3 at the front. I'm sure Mr. Worley can address you in relation to that, and also in relation to the current site. And I believe that if the integrity of the Borough Council's original planning decision is to be upheld, these conditions should be retained. So keep 2, keep number 7. Can I now turn to my third point, condition 17? Condition 17 regulates the ridge height of the properties. My submissions on behalf of the Parish Council and local residents is keep this condition. Ridge height was originally not to be above 9.2 metres. The developer, I think, seeks to increase this. The council cannot effectively monitor this, only by ensuring that the original condition is adhered to will you ensure that the character and the amenity and the adverse effect of what is a very large development for Old Dalby, with implications for character and appearance and highways which you have yet to see, is ameliorated. So with the greatest of respect to the developer, this variation application in terms of points, conditions 2, 7 and 17, I ask you to consider rejecting and retaining them as they are. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm happy to take questions.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Faulkner, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just a point of clarification, if I can here, because Mr. Lee is requesting that on condition 17, the ridge height is maintained at 9.2, but I'm sure that our officer said that the ridge height was going to be 9.2. So I'm not sure what's...
Chairman, can I answer that question? Your officer gives you 2 alternatives. He suggests either amended plans can be submitted or the condition can effectively be retained and reimposed. The preference of the local community and the parish council, given the experiences we have had with this developer and landowners past and present, is that the condition is retained, because it's quite clear that if it is not, there is no guarantee that the ridge height commitment will be adhered to. I implore the committee, please stick to your guns and stick to your original decision, which whilst we were not perhaps happy with the development, thank you for protecting the local community and area with those conditions.
Thank you.
Could I just ask Louise to clarify what she said about the ridge height?
Yes, please.
I quote from your report.
Sorry. Can we let
sorry, my apologies.
Louise answer the question? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just to read again with regards to, bear with me a second. Okay, so the agent has clarified that none of the 5-bedroom dwellings have been constructed on the site and confirmed the condition ensuring the 2.5-storey dwellings do not exceed 9.2 metres in height will be adhered to on site, as it can be ensured during construction the dwellings do not exceed that height.
In response to that, and now set that condition remain in place, as your report says in paragraph 5.9.9, alternatively, a condition could be imposed, as was the case for 18011111 FUL, reimposing the limit of 9.2 metres. That is what we would request the committee to do as a
Thank you,
safeguard.
Mr. Lee. I think you've already addressed the committee and made that point.
Sorry,
so
my apologies, Madam
thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, is your question being answered, Councillor Faulkner? Okay. Louise, did you want to come back? Do you see you have your hand raised?
It was just merely to point out that obviously it was an update, and as I'd suggested in my introduction, things have moved on, and some of this has been moving all the way up to today. So just it may not have come across earlier in the report because obviously we've been moving since the report was
It's very
issued.
fluid, hasn't it, up until today even. So thank you very much. Any other questions for Councillor Lee? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Councillor Lee. We'll,
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm grateful. Thank you, members.
Thank you. We now have Mr. Botterill, who's the agent. Good evening, Mr. Botterill. Welcome.
Good evening.
Hi. I dare say you know you've got 3 minutes to address the committee, and if you'd like to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
This application is to vary and discharge planning conditions for a planning consent granted in September 2018 for 36 new homes in Old Dalby. The application seeks consent to vary the design of the previously approved house types with a variety of minor amendments. The general site layout and position of all 36 houses remains the same as the approved scheme. The design changes do not impact on the overall design principles and certainly have no impact on the loss of privacy to any adjacent residents. Window and window distances to adjacent properties are exactly the same as the 2018 approval. Other revisions to the scheme include for proposed works to a hedgerow which runs along the southern boundary of the site, a decision made due to the very poor condition of the existing hedge. We are happy to retain the hedge where possible, but we would suggest that where the hedge is in poor condition, it is replaced with new, which will provide a sustainable, long-term solution for ongoing maintenance. Details of the proposed footpath have been submitted, and initially there were concerns that we might not be able to meet the 4 metre clear width requirement set out in the planning approval at the northeast corner of the site. Well, I'm happy to confirm that following some recent hedgerow maintenance, that 4 metre width will be achievable. And I can also confirm, having reviewed the original topographical survey data, that the new footpath sits directly over the previous one. Adjacent to the southern hedgerow was an open ditch, which was used to direct stormwater from several row gullies on Longcliffe Hill. We do not feel that an open watercourse running through the middle of a housing development adjacent to a public footpath was either sensible or safe. The original open ditch has now been piped underground, and this detail has received technical approval from Leicestershire County Council. 3 out of the 36 houses have been illustrated with a 9.3 metre ridge height. However, our client is happy to reduce this to 9.2 in accordance with condition 17 of the planning approval, and we therefore are agreeable for this condition to remain. Up until recently, there was a holding objection from the LFFA regarding the drainage strategy, but I understand yesterday this objection was lifted following submission of further details. I accept that this is a reasonably large site and the applicant is made up of many parts. However, the format of this application was driven by your own planning department in order to deliver 36 new homes, 9 of which are now sold. In my professional opinion, there are no reasonable grounds why this application should not be approved this evening, in line with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? No, can't see any hands raised. No, it looks as if
we've got Councillor Chandler.
Oh, right, I've just spotted that. Councillor Chandler. Councillor Chandler, do you have?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can do.
Jolly good. May I get a point of clarification from Mr. Bottrell, please? Do I take it the way you addressed us that the hedge actually belongs to the developer?
That's correct, yes.
So there'll be a management plan put in place to maintain it?
There is. There's a management company in place to manage all the landscaping works, and the hedge will be included in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I can't see any other hands raised on my list. So thank you very much, Mr. Bottrell. Thank you for coming along this evening. Thank you. Right, we've heard the speakers. Officers, no doubt you wish to make comment on what you've heard. Will this be either Louise or will it be Jim?
If I may step in, please, Chair.
Yes, yes, please.
I'm prompted to speak, to be honest, by Mr. Lee's comments, and not to disagree with him either. As Louise said right at the beginning, and as I think you understand anyway, this application is something of a mishmash and deals with amendments, some undertaken by the developer without permission, and then a whole load proposed going forward as well. And Mr. Lee was quite right. Circumstances like this certainly do get everyone's goat and is wholly unsatisfactory. But in planning, as we all know, it's just about one of the first lessons you learn, isn't it? Departing from a plan is not in itself good enough reason to take action. You have to assess the effect of those departures as well, and essentially that's what we're doing with this application tonight. So picking up on a couple of on a list of what some of those are, I'm going to use his own phrase here: sticking to your guns. So we have here a proposal to remove the hedge that runs east-west. We propose a condition disallowing that. We're sticking to our guns. We've heard that in the top right-hand corner, where the pinch point around the footpath was of concern, it's now a mere 100 millimetres. So the original intent is retained. We're sticking to our guns. We've heard that we've persuaded the developers not to exceed 9.2 metres in height as per the original condition. We're sticking to our guns. You get the picture. Can't give the application a clean bill of health in those terms, I'm afraid, because we do have that section where that Mr. Bottrell just addressed, actually, where a relatively small length of the ditch has been culverted and a length of hedge has been removed. If I can just refer you to the rationale and the narrative around that at paragraphs 5.3.1, 2, 3 and 4, you'll see there that we consider that those impacts are acceptable. Doesn't excuse them doing it before permission, but this is in a case where it had limited or no adverse consequences. The concern there was about ecology, and again, as you heard from Louise right at the beginning, ecology aren't concerned about that particular aspect. They're concerned about other things. So I just wanted to, I suppose, go back to the origin of this application to remind everyone where it came from, make the point that it's not satisfactory, but we are where we are, and our powers still need to be applied in the usual discretional manner.
Thank you. Could I ask, just for clarity, because I think there's been a lot said, so what in actual fact is the recommendation on this particular application?
Seeing on one, I'll do my best. I might need Louise's help here.
Yeah,
so
just that we know exactly where we're going with it, because we don't want to go down one route and then have to backtrack and do something else. So,
so as drafted, the recommendation is to approve with conditions. Those conditions as drafted in the report, plus the 3 that arrived recently from the LLFA in relation to the drainage details, plus a condition saying, notwithstanding these plans, you must keep that hedgerow, not lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, and again, I would agree with Mr. Lee, we retain that condition about height, because what we've heard tonight actually is that it's achievable. That's not the same as requiring it. So I think it needs to show its face again.
Okay. Thank you for that, because I think there was so much happening. It's difficult for members and, well, myself as well, to pick up what we're actually going to be agreeing to or not agreeing to, as the case may be. Okay.
With Louise, that was everything.
It was, yes.
So thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you.
Right. Over to you, members. Do you have any questions after now we've got the clarification of what we're actually discussing this evening? Right, here we go. Councillor Hewson, I see your hands raised.
It's just over the dike that's been culverted. It's very easy to put a pipe through and just fill a dike in, but it's not so easy to maintain the pipe and keep the water flowing. Is there any sort of, is this going to be within the management to actually keep this pipe clear? Because once you get flood waters coming towards a pipe, it doesn't just bring water with it, it brings all the debris and everything else. And blocked pipes can soon cause problems, and then the dike fills up and backs up and causes flooding.
Exactly.
Did you want to respond to that, Louise or Jim?
So the information that's been provided is in twofold. There's the drainage information, which is part of the application for consideration, but there is also a technical sign-off from the County Council, and details such as those that have just been described form part of a technical sign-off. So they will have been assessed, and the LLFA have agreed with the details.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Hewson?
But if there's any flooding, then do the LFFA take the problem then?
Did you want to respond, Louise?
I think it's quite a difficult question to answer, isn't it? You know, when something happens, it's the ownership of the landowner and those technical agencies. Again, I don't know if Mr. Worley has anything further to say on that point.
Yeah, I know the background. I know the background. Yeah, this is the ditch that was described at the beginning is now being redundant because all the water is diverted into the drainage system.
Councillor Hewson, did you hear that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Has that answered your query then? So
partly, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor Holmes.
Am I? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Right. 5.9.3. Oh no, before that, 5.8.1. Consultation with the LLFA, Severn Trent Water. Environment Agency. Well, we know what it's like in my village, don't we? And what Severn Trent are supposed to have done, or what they're supposed to be doing. I really have no confidence in Severn Trent. I have. I think we've got to look at this water thing very, very seriously. And it's all very well doing this site, yeah, filling in a ditch, and as my fellow councillor said, it's all very well at this moment, but can we be assured that the plan afterwards, that it is going to be looked after, that it's going to be maintained.
Exactly.
I mean, this is something that is extremely serious. And, you know, following the full service site, it has not, this is 5.9.3, not provided, it's not proved possible to retain the boundary hedge. Oh dear. It's not because they don't want it. And then if they get very close to the roots, it'll actually die, won't it? Because that's what happens. I'm sorry, but this is a very big mess. And I would like to see that if this is permitted, if it is permitted, then there's got to be a plan that carries on, not for today, not for tomorrow, but forever. And then lastly, the Chief Planning Officer is talking about the height of the dwellings. Am I not right in thinking that the height of the dwellings was actually done when it shouldn't have been done? It should have been lower. It shouldn't have only been 2-storey. So why are we now agreeing to this height? Why aren't we not just having the 2-storey? I know where this is. I've gone by it many, many times. We have, again, we've got urban houses in a rural setting. And I just find that it is unbelievable that we keep doing this time and time and time again. I think I'd like to ask Mr. Worley, am I not right in saying that they actually built higher? So the height was actually then. And so why can't we, instead of the height then, and that seems to be acceptable, well, it's not really, because they didn't have planning permission to do it that high, did they, in the first place? I may be wrong, but perhaps you could enlighten me, Mr. Worley.
Yeah,
you want to respond? Sorry,
yeah,
Mr. Worley.
trawling the memory banks. Yeah, the houses were, before they came out the ground, the houses were proposed at quite a height, and we restricted that height with the condition that's been referred to earlier at 9.2. And the ones that have been built are 9.2, and so far so good. What we've discussed tonight is that there's other ones as yet unbuilt that on the plan marginally higher than 9.2. And as you've heard, we're proposing a condition that would treat them the same way and limit them to 9.2 as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And just pick up a couple of other things that Councillor Holmes said as well, just to so you've understood, because on the paragraph you cited 5.9.3 about the point of the footpath. I don't know if you caught Louise earlier or me latterly. That's now largely been overcome because there's 3.9 metres width in that corner on the ground. So the requirement, which is 2 + 1 + 1, 4 metres, is within a smidgen of being achieved, even at its narrowest point.
Right. I've been off the internet all afternoon, so if there's been anything, I've not seen anything. But I still feel that we've got to give at least that, you know, for footpaths and everything. Why should we? Why shouldn't we give what we should give? Not nearly or about. It should be what was actually there, and what was agreed in the first place. I feel that we're keep letting these things happen, and I feel we've got to stick a feet in and say no. We're going to have it as wide as it's necessary for people's enjoyment in the countryside. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other members wish to comment? Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I share Councillor Holmes' concerns here. This footpath, it does worry me, and I did raise it at briefing on Monday. I want some assurances that when the nettles and briars that are at the bottom of all hedges, field hedges, they start growing out across the footpath, it's barely going to be its statutory width. Who's going to maintain it? Because I don't know of anybody, a contractor or farmer, who's going to put a hedge cutter on a tractor, spend half a day doing that to do about 10 metres of hedge. Nobody can use a hedge knife these days, and scythes, I don't think anybody's ever seen one. They're in museums now. I think that this application, it concerns me, and this 9.2, I mean, they're awful, all these windows up in the roof. I've got a very steep roof, but I've got gallows that take it. I mean, it's typical period house with gallows that show it takes the blandness off. These are just bland. They should be in the middle of a city, not in the middle of a village. No, I'm afraid I'm not very happy with this application at all. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Steadman.
Sorry, Chair, just clarification. Have we actually entered debate now, or are we still on questions?
Well, I think we're probably entering the debate now, aren't we? Or if you have a question, then please go for it.
No, I don't have a question. I was just waiting for the cut-off point.
No, off you go then. If you want to start the debate, I'll leave it to you.
I think it's already started.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the Parish Council raised some very valid points here. My particular concern is culverting of a small length of a drainage ditch, and one has to wonder that if the drainage ditch is redundant, then why are you culverting it? If I go for permit culverting anything, I will get lynched in this village, because culverts in Red Mile and in Long Clawson have caused us nothing but property flooding, and if we don't need them, we shouldn't be having them in there. They've replaced some hedging with fencing. That goes against the neighbourhood plan policy. Hedgerows are to be retained, and if they lose them, replacement planting for a net gain. I don't see that here. And I would like to see condition 7 retained and reimposed, along with condition 17, which restricts the ridge height to 9.2 metres. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? No. Councillor Faulkner, I could rely on you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at listening about this with the culvert a lot. They're saying it's a redundant thing, so it's been culverted. But a lot of us are not happy with that at all, really. Is it within our powers to say, I'm sorry, but you've got to remove that culvert and put it back as a drainage ditch as it was originally?
Louise or Jim, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, yes, you can refuse. In theory, you can refuse any application or part of an application if it affronts some policy or other material consideration. Can I just make sure we all understand what we're talking about here? At 5.3.2 of the report, page 29. And I'm going to pick up something Councillor Steadman referred to as well. So there you'll see the diagram of the area concerned. I'll start with the hedge. The removed hedge is the outlined black and white. That's the 6 to 8 metres referenced in the report.
Yeah.
The replacement is the green, which is 3 times as long.
Yeah.
So the trade-off that Councillor Steadman referred to is to counter that way. That 6 to 8 metres is also the length of the culvert that's been installed. This particular ditch goes on right across the site to its other side, way off the scope of this particular extract, and that's not proposed to be touched at all.
Good.
So it's only in this 6 to 8 metres.
Right. So we seem to have been talking at cross purposes. I think some members thought the whole of the ditch was going to be culverted, but it's just that initial one which has already been done together with the fence put on top.
Yeah,
of it.
already been done doesn't make it okay.
No, it doesn't. But that's what we're. Yeah.
I had that same wobble this afternoon because I wondered whether I was misunderstanding and it meant all of it. And
Yeah.
I got clarity that it's not. No more.
Okay, right. Councillor Steadman, does that answer your query regarding the culverting?
I was aware that it was a small stretch that is going to be culverted or is already culverted, should I say. And I'm sorry, I still don't find that acceptable. I see flooding from this. Can I just clarify from Jim, though, that we could actually be in a position to permit this, providing we retain and reimpose the conditions that we want. So this would be condition 7. Condition 17 refers to the ridge heights of a maximum of 9.2 metres. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, that's what we were recommending when I tried to capture them all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Any other comments? Anybody else want to join the debate? No, we're very quiet this evening. Councillor Steadman.
It's just me and you.
I know it
Right,
is.
I would like to propose permit on this application, providing that we can retain and reimpose conditions 17 and conditions 7. And I think we might need probably some debate or clarification on condition 2 that Councillor Lee brought up, if that's possible, because I'm not sure whether to include that or not. It didn't actually get on my radar, that one.
Right. Plans. Okay. Mr. Power, did you want to come in? Comment?
Yes, Chairman. I just want to make I understand this is an application under section 73 to change conditions attached to a previous consent. If we reach the stage where members are saying that we want to retain all the existing conditions on the previous consent, then the right decision is to refuse this application. It's only if you're changing some or all of the conditions where you would give an approval, and that doesn't necessarily have to be all the ones that they've applied for. Clearly, you can, as Jim has said, he's retaining some of the conditions that they've sought changes on. But I just wanted to make the point: if you reach the point where you want to retain all the conditions, the right decision is to refuse. Yeah.
2 out of 20, though, Bob.
Sorry, say again.
It's like about 2 out of 20, so not getting close to all.
To change out of 20, yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised.
Well, I think I'd prefer Councillor Steadman to go first, because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Let Councillor Steadman go first.
Councillor Steadman.
Councillor Steadman. Councillor Steadman. So if I understand Mr. Power correctly, he's saying rather than trying to retain and reimpose, the best way forward is just to refuse these revisions. That's not correct. I've misunderstood. Sorry.
Can I just clarify?
Yes, go on.
I heard a lot of complaints about some of the proposed objections to conditions. And all I wanted to say is if members reach the position that the previous conditions should not be changed at all, then the right decision then is to refuse this application. But if you're approving some amendments, and it could be an amendment just to one condition, then that would be a good grounds to grant the new permission. And in effect, the new permission would restate all the other conditions and only alter those that are being amended.
Okay. Councillor Steadman, is that clear?
No, it's not. So I could recommend permit on this, providing that we retained the original condition 17 and condition 7. One to do with the culvert and the other one to do with the building height.
And I think that was part of the clarification that I sought when we first started the debate, to make it clear for everybody to understand exactly what we were discussing and what potentially we could do. And Mr. Worley did say to approve the conditions as set out this evening, plus the 3 from the LLFA, and to retain condition 7 and condition 17 in the original application permission. Okay. Does that answer your question?
It's actually making me more confused. Yes, I agree with the conditions with the LLFA. It's just basically, obviously, I want to see the revisions go through, but not on condition 7, which is the brook, and conditions 7 and 17 retained as they are.
Which is what
and I would like to propose permit,
based on
providing we
that.
can retain those.
Okay, that's fine. Right, now, Mr. Power, did you want to come in again? No.
That's fine. That justifies a grant of a new consent. I was just concerned that some members were reaching the position where they thought that no amendments to these conditions were appropriate. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Holmes.
Well, I would second that, but only if the proposer would agree that for in perpetuity the ditch and the culvert, etc., and where the hedge is, that they were looked after in perpetuity.
Sorry, yes, Councillor Holmes, I believe condition 7 will remove that culvert anyway. And I think the applicants already said that they will actually form part of the management plan for the site as well. So that's already in there.
Yeah, they've said a lot of things, but can we absolutely get it so that they do and they don't walk away from it? I don't know how we can do it. Is that a possibility?
Over to you, Mr. Powers.
I was just going to ask Mr. Worley to come in there. Is there a sort of a maintenance plan for the site itself, Mr. Worley? And
yeah.
will that, yeah.
And they can capture those hedge maintenance issues that Councillor Steadman mentioned to Councillor Chandler earlier. I'm now a bit confused. So condition 7 was the footpath condition.
It was.
It was.
I'm not quite sure what subject you're trying to address, Councillor Steadman.
The culvert with condition 7.
Well,
so the culvert wasn't the subject of a condition per se, other than part of the layout. And if you're going to find that extract, it was the one I was speaking about at 532, to be an unacceptable aspect of this proposal. Oh, heck. There's an option of, I guess, refusal or further conditions, striking it out in the same way that we've described the hedge earlier.
Yeah.
Chairman, could I?
If justified.
Sorry, Mr. Power, did you want to come in?
Is there a condition on this permission that deals with the culvert situation at all?
Only in the sense that you must adhere to the layout, so it's shown as the part and parcel of the layout.
Right. And in the layout, there's no indication that the culvert would be covered up.
Not in the original.
Yeah. In essence, members, the filling in of the culvert seems to me to be a piece of operational development, probably operational development without planning permission. In a sense, I'm not sure it's material to what we're considering, because we've been asked to change conditions attached to this permission that don't address the culvert. The culvert could be looked at separately as a piece of operational development that's been undertaken without planning permission. And if members, if the view is that that piece of development has given rise to planning harm, and we need to know what that planning harm is, then that could be the subject of a planning enforcement notice. But we should only take enforcement action where this development has given rise to some identifiable planning harm. But that's really something that we could deal with separately from this consideration, really.
Sorry to interrupt again. The background of this application does capture that particular change. It's just wrapped up as a part of a proposed new layout. So it would need to be done through this decision rather than addressed separately.
So the layout shows the culverting of that watercourse, does it?
Yeah, this time round, yes.
Right. Well, you know, if you were going to approve the new layout, but you didn't want to approve that, you should, you know, add a condition that part of the layout is not approved, I guess.
Okay. Right. I see Councillor Chandler, you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This culvert concerns me because at the moment, my family are unblocking culverts for 24 hours a day. Well, not quite, but during the hours of light. It's not the water, it's all the trash that gets into the ditches and into the culverts, and that's what blocks the culverts, and they take a lot of maintaining. And I'm very suspect about this. Who's going to maintain it? It's all right. Oh, it's glibly say we've got a management plan, everybody's going to pay into it. But who's actually going to say, oh, that culvert needs cleaning out? Because they take an awful lot of maintaining, culverts do. They're very good in decent weather, but a year like this, when you've had an awful lot of rain, that we've been talking about Nipton tonight earlier. I went last Friday afternoon and the culverts were all blocked there. They've probably been unblocked now by the neighbouring farmers, but it's a full-time job at the moment, unblocking culverts. And it's not bad maintenance and bad farming. It's purely and simply the circumstances of the amount of rainfall we've had and the trash that's about. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Well, we do have a proposal to permit.
I don't think you've got a seconder anymore. It's concerning to me, this is.
Oh, you've removed your seconding then?
Yeah, I don't think I can second it because it is incredibly serious, this water thing. Really, really serious. Okay. We've got a lake which does overtop very occasionally. It isn't just overtopping one field, it is overtopping 2 fields, which never ever happened before. But we are getting more water. We are getting global warming, whatever anybody likes to say. You know, and I really feel very seriously about this. So I have to withdraw my second.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mr. Worley, did you want to come in there?
Yes, please. I'm worried that it's become confused or misunderstood. This culvert is redundant. It carries no water anymore.
Yeah.
Why has it been culverted then?
It was culverted when it did. The reason it carries no water now is because what it used to carry has been diverted into the drainage system for the whole estate.
Thank you for that clarification. It saved me doing it, because I know we were talking about that earlier. Right, Councillor Steadman, I see your hand raised again.
Sorry, I was wondering if I could rejig my recommendation to permit to retain condition 17 and to condition that this part of the layout is not approved.
Which
I know
part?
The culvert. You know, I should imagine that in heavy rain there is a lot of water that comes off Longcliffe Hill and would probably end up in this drainage ditch.
Masses of water.
So I would want to see, you know, a permit with condition 17 retained and reimposed, and that this part of the layout is not approved. I cannot go with putting a culvert anywhere at the minute, looking at the flooding problems we've got, and then when you take into account climate change, we just don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, Councillor Posnett.
I was only going to second Councillor Steadman if she's happy with the debate so far.
I'm quite confused by it actually, but I think we're there.
I think we all
we
are.
seem to have gone round and round in circles here. So yeah. Basically, Councillor Steadman, you're proposing to approve with the conditions as set out this evening, plus the 3 from the LLFA, but you want the addition that the culvert that has been installed removed.
Yeah,
correct?
that part of this revision to refused effectively. That part of this whole quagmire of revisions refused, and condition 17 retained and reimposed.
And you want to keep condition 7 as well, which is the hedgerows.
I think Bob was saying, sorry, I think Mr. Powers was saying, instead of trying to retain and reimpose that, your best thing is to just refuse it. So to refuse that condition.
Right, okay. Well, so basically, if you're refusing the request to remove condition 7, you are sort of retaining condition 7, then, aren't you, basically? So yeah, we'll do it the other way around. Okay, Mr. Power.
Sorry. Jim advised that the culverting of the ditch was included in some of the new
Hello, Ruben.
submitted.
I'm okay, but I'm still at a meeting, darling.
Sorry, do you want to mute yourself, Pam? You've done it right, okay. Yeah, sorry, Bob.
Jim, I think, said earlier that the culverting of the ditch was something that the applicants have proposed and is set out in one of their new drawings. Is that right, Jim? And can you identify which drawing it is?
Yeah, it is right. And rather than identifying the drawing by number, it's the part of the plans that is shown on page 29.
Right. It just seems to me if members, if this motion goes through and members are approving these new drawings but without approving the culvert, we need to add that in a condition somewhere, making it clear that that part of the layout is not approved.
Okay, thank you.
And justify that position.
Yeah, and justify. We need evidence.
We do need a planning reason for not approving.
Thank you. Yeah. Louise?
I was just going to ask if anybody wanted me to share my screen. Jim, is it the paragraph within the report to which you're referring to, the committee report?
Yeah, 532. Then there's a diagram, which is the exact corner of the site that we're talking about.
Okay, just bear with me 1 moment.
That's the fella.
If I can get it any bigger.
We can do that at our end, Louise.
Oh, okay.
Right. Does that help, members?
Yeah, of course it would. I think that's the best thing. Because it's all that's fine. He's sitting in there.
Right, thank you for that. So we have. I think I've lost track now. Actually, all my notes are all over the place. Louise, you have your hand raised still. Okay, right. We have a proposal from Councillor Steadman to approve with conditions as set out this evening, which includes the 3 regarding the lead flood authority. To refuse removal of condition 7, refuse removal of condition 17. And did you want to add something about the...
Sibby, come here. Sibby?
Sorry, I couldn't hear people talking, sorry. Did you want to add anything regarding the culvert? Just to clarify what we're actually going to vote on. Councillor Steadman.
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was getting...
Right, I know there's lots of
Over from
background
someone
noise
else.
going on, wasn't there? Yes, it's conditions as we've set out this evening, as the officers have set out in the report, and this evening the update, which includes the 3 from the Lead Flood Authority.
Yeah.
And to keep the hedgerow, to refuse removal of condition 7, and refuse removal of condition 17.
Yeah, retain condition 17, which is the ridge height at maximum 9.2.
Right.
Yeah,
And
that's
also
fine.
to retain the hedges. So there's nothing else you want I included in that?
No, I think that's enough.
Right. Does that include something, I know you mentioned earlier about the culverting?
That's part of condition 7, isn't it?
No, we'll come back to that again. I don't think it is.
I think Mr. Powers said condition that part of the layout is not approved, which is the culverting part of the layout.
Right. Okay. So with a refusal for the area dealing with the culvert is not approved. Right. Councillor Posnett.
Yes.
Are you in agreement with the proposal? Because you did second.
Yes.
Right. And you fully understand what we're about to.
I think so. It's been very difficult.
It has been difficult, but we just need to clarify this. And we have Mr. Power with his hand raised again. So let's see if this is going to alter our thought process.
A planning reason why we were not approving the culverting.
Quite.
We have a planning reason for turning that down effectively.
Right. Do you have a planning reason, Councillor Steadman, which will stand up?
Potential flooding.
Not off the top of my head, to be honest with you. I mean, we must have imposed these conditions for a reason in the first place. I remember this the first time round, and we had a very strong representation from the village on the retaining of the hedges and the ecology. I think it will have a negative impact, which would be neighbourhood plan policy ENV4, ENV9, protect and enhance biodiversity. I note from the next application that there are newts around the village. I have no idea what impact this will have on them. And over time, if this culvert blocks, it has the potential to cause flooding, which most culverts do in my experience at the moment.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else can put any other policies in there off the top of their heads.
No. Mr. Power, have you got your hand raised again? No, you're on mute.
It was a legacy hand, sorry.
Right, okay.
Legacy hand.
Okay. So we do have a motion to approve the variation with conditions as set out this evening, plus these 3 from the LLFA, and to refuse condition 7, refuse condition 17, removal of condition 17, and the imposition of a further condition to refuse removal of the ditch and insertion of the to refuse the culvert. Am I correct in this?
Reinstate the ditch.
So we
Is
need
that
to
right? Reinstate the ditch.
So we need to reinstate the culvert, the ditch.
The ditch.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. And you did say that your planning reasons for that were to do with the removal of the hedge, but I think as we've already seen, they're going to put another hedge in, which.
Yeah, I think it's ENV4, ENV9, the possibility that it could cause flooding. And I think ecologically as well, like I say, there are newts in the area. They only go to the ponds to breed. So they go out into places like ditches, for example. We have it here quite classically to overwinter.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. And are you in agreement with that, Councillor Posnett?
Yes.
Right. Oh gosh. Right. there's no more hands raised, so let's move to the vote. Do I have to revisit what we're voting on, or does everybody totally understand? Okay, right, we're okay. So we have a motion to agree the variation in part, basically, to approve with conditions as set out this evening, plus the one dealing with the LLFA, not to permit removal of condition 7, not to permit removal of condition 17, and to add a further condition to remove the culvert and then reinstall the ditch. Okay, right, thank you. So if I go through the list that I've got, the alphabetical list, the first one on the list is Councillor Bindloss.
For.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Brown's not here. Councillor Chandler.
With reluctance, for.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy, for. Councillor Hewson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes.
Abstain, because I can't believe that we're doing this. Normally, if we've got so many things against, you actually vote against and then you bring it back again so that you can approve it. That's how we used to do it, but we obviously don't do it anymore like that.
It's just an opportunity to vote, not to give another speech.
Yes, true. Councillor Posnett.
For.
Councillor Steadman.
For.
And Councillor Wood.
For.
Thank you very much. That is agreed. So thank you, everybody. That was a good debate, lots of different points raised, and I would like to thank everybody for their patience. Thank you. Right, just move on, but I just need to advise Councillor Higgins that we're moving on to the next item. So please.
Councillor Glancy.
Hello.
I have already advised Councillor Higgins.
Oh, good.
Hopefully he'll be here shortly.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Right, here we come. He's coming in now. Right. Our final item this evening is 4.3. Application 20/00775/REM, which is Reserve Matters, Longcliffe Hill House, Longcliffe Hill, Old Dalby. Officers, over to you, and it's Louise who's going to be doing this, I think.
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Presentation back for you. Okay. Okay, so the proposal has been amended following a workshop undertaken with the agent and representatives of the parish council. It should be noted that following that meeting, alterations were made to 5 out of the 8 plots, which included the change of materials, removal of some of the previously rendered plots, along with the addition of more chimneys and blue clay roof tiles to plots 1 and 2 to better reflect Longcliffe House. The removal of roof lights to the majority of the properties, which members can remove permitted development rights to if they feel necessary. The creation of visitor parking for 3 additional cars on the west side of the main access road. So if I just take you through the plans. An amended proposed site plan shows a 1 metre buffer in green along the site boundaries, which is not imposed upon or compromised by the development. Plots have been orientated to have garden spaces facing the hedgerow, providing additional benefits to avian species and light spill minimised from the main spine road onto the adjacent hedgerow. As mentioned earlier, 3 spaces have been provided at this point to reduce the number of parked cars on the street frontage when visiting the dwellings. This was a specific request of the parish council and the amendment accepted by the agent. These are the details of the individual plots for you. So plot 1, plot 2, again, I won't go into great detail because I know members will have seen these in full from the plans provided earlier. So plot 6 is a rendered, plot 7, and then a single story bungalow at plot 8. Another thing to note here is a further amendment that was made as part of this application, was looking at the parking and trying to provide front garden spaces and open frontage to capture the rural context of the site. You will see here that there are hedgerows and gardens to the front of dwellings, along with additional green space to the side of some dwellings, thus providing a soft edge for the development when travelling up to and along the Spinal Road. The application is recommended for approval subject to conditions within the report and the addition of a condition removing permitted development rights for the alteration of roofs if considered reasonable and necessary by members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have any questions of Louise, members? Bob, you have your hand up. You got a question? No, you put it down now, right? Councillor Higgins.
Thank you. Just in regards to the outline, I think, and the condition for a housing mix, that was silent from the parish council and officer presentation, and it's quite significantly in the original permission. That's all. And before we go to obviously the speakers, I'm just surprised why the officers haven't even touched on that in their presentation.
Okay, I can with pleasure. That is in the report in the full detail. If you just bear with me 1 second. So within the report, because there is a mention of a need for smaller houses within both the neighbourhood plan and the local plan, discussions that were held with the parish council, they welcomed the single story bungalow, and they noticed that there was not the exact mix, but it was felt that the mix was broadly in line with the aspirations of the smaller dwellings, obviously having the 2 focal houses for monetary value, or to obviously what's the word I'm looking for here? Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, 2 focal plots, I think, is probably what I'm looking for. So the larger developments, and the remainder of them being the smaller 2 3-bed houses, and indeed the bungalow as well.
Okay, I'll probably leave it to after the speakers, but just so officers are on notice, so Chair, with your permission, if you can point to what because I'm not seeing these smaller plots, but and square footage and size, but I'll ask that in the debate, so I'll give officers time to come back on those ones. So I don't see this focal point, and because they just look quite large houses to me anyway.
Did you want to bring up one of the pictures if you've got them on your computer for the focal points, Louise, if you've got them?
Did you want me to do that now or after the speakers?
I'd do it now while we're in the officers' realm, I think.
That's fine. Oops. So we've got plot 8, which is the bungalow. Oh, what's it not doing what it's meant to do? There we go. So plot 8, you've got a 2-bed bungalow. Plot 7 is one of the 3 beds. And plot 6 is a 4-bed. And then plot 5 is the larger, along with plot 4, they're the larger focal houses. And then plot 3, you've got a 3-bed. Lot 2 is a 3-bed, along with plot 1 as a 3-bed.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Higgins?
No, because well, like you say, the space, the size of these the bungalows seem, I mean, that's certainly a mix, but the three bed, I mean, it's very large three beds. So I don't know what, because you can say a 3-bed, but what is the size of those 3 beds? They're an incredible size.
Okay. Well, perhaps that's a point for later on part of the debate then, do you think? Or you could perhaps ask the question of the parish as to what they think.
And if officers, with your permission, Chair, can sort of work out what the size of that is so we can get a better feel, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Steadman, do you have a question of officers before we listen to speakers?
I do, yes, Chair. Just a question for Louise. You just brought up plot 2 there, and the one I'm looking at on page 47 has got a skylight in it. Oh no, sorry, it's been removed. So can I just confirm that that's a 2-storey, not a 2.5-storey house?
It is 2-storey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we can have the first speaker, please, Natasha. We have 2 speakers this evening, and the first one is Councillor Phil Dawn from Nether Broughton and Old Dalby Parish Council.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but we can't see you, Mr. Dawn.
I've been trying all evening to
oh, don't worry.
I hope you'll manage without me. I think at least 2 of you know me anyway, so
okay.
Right, let's get on with it.
As long as we can hear you, so you have 3 minutes from when you start.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, councillors, you will have seen from your notes that Broughton and Old Dalby Parish Council are raising no basic objection to the application before you. Although we did have some concerns which were expressed in our communication of the 10th of September to the council, they have subsequently been addressed. This was partly due to a Zoom meeting held on the 3rd of December, attended by representatives from the applicant, Melton Borough Council Planning Department, Planning Committee councillors and the Parish Council. This, in our view, was a very positive meeting which led to the applicant addressing many of our concerns. If I can quickly go through some of the key points. The housing mix. We were pleased to see that we've got 1-bed, 2-bed bungalow, 4 3-bed and 3 4-bed, a good mix which meets our policy H4 of the neighbourhood plan. Design, this is now in line with H6 of the neighbourhood plan, and we noticed that the brickwork will now match that of Longcliffe House, which was important. As a residential amenity, it's relatively small scale and of low density. Ecology, we were very happy with the attention to the 1 metre buffer zone, hedgerow and trees. And I'm sure that developers will give attention to the drainage as required. Now, the one major thing I think was highways and parking. You will be aware of the particular problems on this narrow road, shortly to be exacerbated by the large development which will exit on the bend of Longcliffe Hill. The applicants here have duly noted our concerns and have made some amendments to household parking. They've additionally created visitor parking spots within the development, which will avoid extra parking on Longcliffe Hill, which could be a nightmare with the other large development taking place. The Parish Council would support the proposed conditions set out by the planning officer. Just as an extra, I would mention that the Parish Council are currently holding discussions with the applicant regarding a possible small donation towards the repair of playground facilities within the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Mr. Dawn? No, I can't see any hands raised. No, okay. Thank you very much there. Thank you. We'll move you back to the waiting area now, but thank you for addressing us. Thank you. The second speaker this evening is James Hicks, who's the agent. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. You have 3 minutes to address the committee and start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Hicks. I'm a Chartered Town Planner and I'm Planning Advisor to Woodgate Homes, the applicant for this scheme. I don't want to waste your time this evening going over what officers have already presented and what's in the report, but I do think it's pertinent to set out a few key matters relating to the application for the approval of the reserve matters here. Firstly, from my point of view, it's a position I always try to adopt on presenting schemes where we're talking about reserve matters, and that's just to set the baseline really, or to reiterate the baseline that this site benefits from planning permission. The outline planning permission was granted in 2018. It's important for us all to note that an outline planning permission is a grant of planning permission in the truest sense, in that it establishes and defines the principle of development. The reserve matters are prescribed conditions of that outline planning permission, and it therefore follows that should the correct details be submitted in respect of those reserve matters, permission should be forthcoming. Of course, we all know what the reserve matters are and we know which conditions we have to deal with on the outline. The scheme presented to you this evening meets with all of the requirements of the outline planning permission. The layout of the site differs very slightly from that presented indicatively at the outline stage, but meets with, as you've heard, the parish councils and your officers' approval. The required buffers to the site boundaries are provided, along with a mix of house types. Excuse me. There are also amendments have been made to parking arrangements, as you've heard. We have listened and acknowledged, and the applicant is very content that the scheme is now better than the one that he designed and brought forward in the first iteration. It's true to say that the scheme is a result of successful collaboration, both with your officers, members of your council, and also members of the parish council, as you've heard. The applicant has carefully listened to the parish council's suggestions and has, of course, taken those points on board through those amendments. As you've also heard, there remains a positive, very positive, in fact, ongoing dialogue with the parish council about the much needed improvements at the village park, and that conversation will continue. In summary, the scheme before you is not met with any material planning objection. It complies with the requirements of the outline planning permission, and it will provide a successful and attractive development of family housing in Old Dalby. I do hope it meets with your approval, and if you do have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of Mr. Hicks at all, members? Councillor Steadman.
I'm on a roll tonight, aren't I?
You are, aren't you? Gosh, keep going.
Just one question, really, Mr. Hicks. I noticed that there is a great crested newt pond at the back of this site. I was wondering if you or the parish council were considering putting a couple of hibernacula's, which is basically a hole in the ground with some bricks in and pipes, for overwintering newts in your 1 metre buffer zone.
That's a very technical question, and I will try and answer it. There is an extensive programme of ecological work proposed to address the conditions and the statutory obligations that colony of great crested newts present. It is, dare I say it in development terms, quite problematic, but there is already an application lodged with Natural England in respect of how to deal with the population. I'm not aware, but I'm not an ecologist, so you have to forgive me on that. I'm not aware of any particular requirement to put anything in the hedgerows. The hedgerows are transitional corridors from the countryside into the more urban area, should we say, of the village. But the mitigation strategy is all about the utilisation of the pond and ensuring that there isn't future development in the paddock land to the rear. So it's very much a compensatory scenario whereby the newts are protected around the pond and nothing can step back and impact upon them. The applicant is fully aware that he has to be very careful in the future with how that paddock area is used, and it will form part of that licence application with Natural England. We can't progress the Natural England licence much further at this point until we have the approval, this RM approval from this committee, because Natural England want to see all the aspects of the development are then fixed before they'll consider what the appropriate mitigation is. But my reassurance is that there's extensive work underway, and there will be well, it has to be, it's licensable work, so it has to meet with Natural England's approval. Does that, in general terms, answer your question?
Yeah, it's just something that you might consider. They actually go under the ground anyway, not in the hedgerows, but it might be a consideration. We have seen them on other sites. That's all. But that answers the question. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hicks. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
And you. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, officers, do you have anything else to add, having heard the speakers? Louise? No?
I'm just going through the measurements.
Okay, right. I know you have the measurements.
I've got the measurements, Louise.
All right. Jim?
Okay, so the three bedroom houses, the 3-bedroom detached houses, they're all slightly different. So in approximate terms, they're about 7 metres by 10 metres each floor, without the garage. So actual floor space. The bungalows are about 10 metres by 12, but that's using their extreme measurements. They're L-shaped, so there's 25 or so metres to come off that. And I didn't measure the big houses, they're just big.
Yeah. Does that help you, Councillor Higgins?
It does. So 7 by 10 for the three beds.
3 beds, yeah.
Vary around that mark, up a bit and down a bit.
And that excludes garage space.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll comment on that when we come to debate. Thank you.
Okay. Right, we've heard from the officers and we've heard from the speakers, so now it's over to you, members. Do you have any questions of officers before we start the debate? Nope, got no hands raised. Right, members. Oh, here we go. Councillor Higgins.
I'm raising the hand for debate when that's.
Yep. Okay, well, off you go then, because there's no other hands raised for questions.
Okay. I don't quite. This doesn't really sit that well with me. Mainly because of the local neighbourhood have taken the time to put a neighbourhood plan together, and I know the Old Dalby and Nether Broughton and Old Dalby Parish Council put some good work in to that, and it's credit to them for the work that they've come working on this particular one. I mean, on their previous representations, I know they did. When you look on the report, which is in the public realm, that they've made representations on the previous application that was heard, especially about garage spaces and everything else. It seems to me this is just eight houses, very large houses, especially with 3 beds. And housing mix, you can build 3 large houses with, and I think that's what we've got here. I don't really think it is a good housing mix, contrary to the neighbourhood plan H4. And if you could just indulge me a moment, I'll just quote what it says. In the wording before the policy is there, it says there is a high level of under occupancy, particularly within properties of 4 or more bedrooms, which suggests a need for smaller houses, which would be suitable for residents needing to downsize, small families, and those entering the housing market, providing suitable accommodation for elderly residents will enable them to remain in the local community and release under-occupied larger properties onto the market, which would be suitable for growing families. Now, I don't mind, I don't have any issue with some of the larger housing. You know, the applicants got to make that money, and I support and welcome that, because obviously the investment's there. But bearing in mind what what goes on before, and I think it was Councillor Holmes was the one who proposed this back in 2017, and well done to her and the committee then putting this stipulation on housing mix. I just don't think this is quite there. I welcome the bungalow, I think that's good, but I think that's the only nod to housing mix. The rest are just large housing, and if you want large 4 beds, that's fine, maybe 1 or 2 large 3 beds. But I'm sorry, I just don't think it's in the spirit of it, especially that I think Councillor Holmes secured that condition back in 2017, if I've read that right. And I think my facts are right of how the committee did there. I think this is smacking in the face of what Councillor Holmes proposed. So I'm not convinced.
Councillor Steadman.
Yes, sorry. In part, I agree with Councillor Higgins, but in part, I think just because it's a 3-bedroomed house or a 2-bedroomed house, it doesn't mean that the rooms have got to be small and pokey, does it?
No.
I think the advantages of the site, it slopes away from the road, so the houses aren't dominant on the street scene or the skyline. The materials that were kindly left in the gateway by the applicant mirror the surrounding buildings, which really blend it into the local vernacular. And I think there is a good mix of house types, although they may be large for a 3-bedroom, it's still a 3-bedroom. And I think that's far easier to achieve on a smaller site. From a neighbourhood plan point of view, I'm obviously in the next village, and we identified a need for 3-bedroomed detached bungalows. And really, we wanted 4 or 5 of them. We're 2 years into our plan and we've already got 11. And I think that's the difficulty when you do a neighbourhood plan, is you identify a local need, but it very quickly gets met. So then you've got to think, what is our need for now? And I should imagine that the parish council have considered this in their deliberations with the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Am I not muted? I'm not. Yeah, all right.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, that was. I'm glad that Councillor Higgins brought that up, because knowing the area, and the thing is, if we're going to have large, sort of 3-bedroom houses, normally, if you are going up the scale or you're coming down the scale, you perhaps don't want to spend as much in big 3-bedroom houses. And all I was trying to do at that time was having, hopefully, the right mix. That's all I for people who wanted to get started and people that wanted to probably come down to smaller houses. I was quite happy with the brick work and that we've seen. I thought that was really commendable. But yeah, I think you know where I'm coming from, and that really doesn't change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to pass comment? Join the debate. Councillor Higgins.
Yeah, it is where I am coming from. I think I didn't sit on that planning committee at the time, and I wasn't a part of that decision. But I do feel, as a decision maker, as it was stipulated, as Councillor Holmes kindly reiterated, I feel as if I'm sort of duty bound to hold what was given in the first place. And if memory serves me correctly, it went against officer recommendations, and I think that's where Councillor Holmes was trying to come from, where proper downsizing for elderly people or young people trying to get on, I think even if you just nodded a wink at one or two houses being slightly smaller footprint, that would have been the mix. Mix just isn't about bedrooms; it's about the value of the house on the open market. And you know, Section 106 for 8 houses is pretty much negligible. So I'm trying to see where the benefits are. So I'm going to stick to the neighbourhood plan H4, which says smaller houses, and it does say that, not smaller number of bedrooms necessarily, small houses. And I think from what the previous committee has directed me to do. So I'm not going to propose anything at the moment, but that's where I'm sitting.
Okay, thank you. Note your comments, but my comment is similar to Councillor Steadman. Not everybody wants to live in a small house, small bedrooms, whatever. Sometimes you want to move from a very large house to a house that may well be slightly smaller. Councillor Posnett.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the parish council and the developer should be commended for the work that they've done. That they've met each other, they've discussed it. Obviously, the parish council must be happy with the housing mix, or they would have said something about it. And you know, personally, me myself, I have downsized. I live on my own, but I've got 3 bedrooms because I've got a family, and I want my family to visit me, and I don't want them to have to pay to stay in a hotel. And you know, I'm not the only person that lives alone that has that stipulation. And I just feel that these houses, they look good. The brickwork, I think, is good. The materials were good. And, you know, I would go along with the officer's recommendations and I would propose this.
Okay. I think I'll step in here. It's unusual for me to do that, but I think the parish council, developers, planning officers have worked really hard together to achieve what they've achieved, which is before this evening. Yes, they might well be slightly larger 3-bed houses, but I know when we look at other developments and we see very small 3-bed houses, we don't like that either. So where do we go from here? And I think this this meets what our vision is. Everyone's worked really hard together, and I would like to second the motion to permit. It does reflect the parish council's view, and it's of a suitable standard that I have no objections to it. So I will second the motion to permit. Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's not that often that you get a parish council and a developer agreeing on things. So I would find it very difficult to go against the recommendation. So I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Posnett, did you want to come back on anything because your hand is still raised?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay. Who we got next? Oh, we've got Louise. Did you have any further comment to make? Your hand is raised.
I just wanted to point out that Councillor Wood is trying to get your attention.
Oh, sorry. He's busy waving. And sorry, Councillor Wood. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say you beat me to it. I would have quite happily seconded it for the reasons given, but also the fact that it is nice to hear a developer talking about their environmental responsibilities, including not only some of the ecological sort of issues, but being happy to put extra car parking in for visitors, etc. And I think they should be commended for that.
Yes, this has certainly come a long way, hasn't it? I think they've done well. Right, we have no further hands raised as far as I can see. So we have a motion to permit in line with officer's recommendations. And I would now go to the vote on that one. So the first one on my list is Councillor Bindloss.
4.
Thank you. Next one is Councillor Chandler.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Faulkner.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Glancy. 4. Councillor Hewson.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Holmes? Councillor Holmes? You're on mute. Councillor Holmes, you're on mute.
I said I will go for it reluctantly because I know what I said before, but I will go
Okay,
for
thank
it.
you. Councillor Posnett?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Steadman?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Wood?
For.
Thank you very much. That is passed. So thank you very much, everybody. And that is, as far as I'm concerned, that is a good result, basically. A lot of hard work by everybody taking part, a lot of communication, understanding from developers, and yes, so it's very positive moving forward. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Final item, item 5, urgent business. I do not have any urgent business. So I would like to close the meeting at 8:55. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, for this evening. All the participants. So thank you very much for attending.